So thanks for joining, everybody. This is I think the sixth in the Rethinking series of our webinars. This time we are talking about extended reality, the new frontier or the next frontier in brand experiences. I think quite a timely topic after yesterday's news from Meta. But again, I'm not going to talk about that now because we'll hopefully cover that later, maybe. But yeah, so the next, I'm James. I'm look after the new business here at Quantum. A little bit about Quantum. You found your way here. I don't need to tell you too much about it, other than we're a brand experience agency based in, I would say, sunny Bournemouth, but today it's windy and rainy Bournemouth. These are some of the clients. If you want to know any more about Quantum, obviously do get in touch after this if you don't already, but we can kind of move on very swiftly. I'm not going to be the person talking here today. You obviously see the delightful faces of Nick and Phil here. Nick is our head of creative strategy at Quantum, and Phil is managing partner of Catalyst, who's a partner of Quantum, a great partner of Quantum. So I'm going to hand over for them to expertly steer you through this new frontier that we are facing at the moment and how it can really enhance the brand experiences you're looking to create. So we've got a jam-packed agenda today, and this will include the following. So we're looking to really sort of start touching on the sort of the technology in the realms of where it can take us. We're going to look at extended reality opportunities and bust some myths. We've got the trends. Obviously, everyone loves the trends. So we're going to look at some trends, some use cases, and then we're going to obviously talk about 2025 and beyond. And then hopefully at the end of it, we'll have some time for some Q&A. So if you have any questions, do submit them into the chat. We probably won't cover them in the session, but we will cover them at the end. So any questions you have, please feel free to drop them over. I think at that point, I'm going to probably hand over to you guys to take it away.
Super. Great. Well, welcome, everybody. Lovely to meet you all.
Sorry, Phil. Sorry. One thing I was going to say, we were meant to before this, weren't we? I completely forgot. We were meant to share the results of the poll, which I will do right now. There we go. So we're literally 100% in terms of knowledge is limited and we're looking to learn more. I mean, what more of an audience could you want for this webinar? Sorry, over to you again. I'll let you crack on now.
Thanks, James. And I'd love to meet you all. Yeah, I think, today is a bit of a sort of bite-sized, a bit of education storytell about, the whole XR world, really. I think it's important just to kind of cover off what is XR. We get asked this quite often. Is XR new technology? Is it something that's coming out? No, it's actually an umbrella term for the augmented reality, which obviously we abbreviate as AR, mixed reality, obviously MR, and virtual reality, which is VR. So actually, just a bit of education for you guys. You might think it's a new technology. It's not. It's an umbrella term, and obviously we ourselves in Quantum, we do a lot of experiences and activations for brands in this kind of extended reality world. And we'll tell you a bit more about it as we go along. So let's talk about VR, and it's probably important not knowing your roles, but, are you a brand, do you work in brand, are you an agency yourselves? Where can VR fit in? There's lots of pros for VR, it's very immersive, it's 360 viewing. But there are cons against it. You've got to wear a headset. But, when you think about VR and you think about that kind of storytelling you've got with an agency and a brand, how can we amplify that through VR? It could be, real estate through environments and locations. It could be virtual stores where we try on products. That's a growing trend at the moment. It could be an opportunity to create, an activation through TV and film, which, is a great user case for VR. And there's loads listed there. I'm not going to list them all out. But VR has a great opportunity to kind of drive and touch all senses. VR is growing. We'll talk a bit later on about Meta. They released a new headset. We've got the Apple Vision Pro. There's loads of new hardware coming out, which is extending the virtual reality into new realms. And then I'm just going to show you a really good example of virtual reality in practice. So for people that are not known, Squid Game released on Netflix last year. Hugely popular. If you haven't seen it, go on there and watch it. But what the opportunity here was, how could consumers relive the experience you've watched on Netflix? And virtual reality was a great way to do that. So I'm just going to show you a quick video VR in practice.
Oh my God.
Testers, welcome to the virtuals competition. Round 1.
Red light.
Remember, performing the wrong command will result in your elimination.
Whoa!
Oh my God!
Whoa!
Brilliant. You know, a quick snapshot. There's a longer video on YouTube if you want to do a quick Google search. But you know, VR is so powerful. If you haven't tried it, please go. I think Sandbox was mentioned there as well. Sandbox is like a local VR experience. They're dot around the country. You can go in, spend hours in there, and like, try on virtual reality and experience it. So if you haven't done it before, go and have a try. So, yep. Next slide. Part of the XR world is augmented reality, you know, and this is not slowing down. Nick will share some stats shortly around the effectiveness of it, but in terms of AR, you know, where does that fit in? Now, typically it's around social media, you know, with filters and activations. It could be CGI assets for fake out of home, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But there's so many user cases for augmented reality, and we're seeing a massive surgence in AR briefs across the industry. You know, lots of brands are taking the benefits of AR, moving into VFX as well. You know, there's huge things that we can do in the AR. If you go on to the next slide, when we talk about AR, there's actually 3 types of AR platforms. So you've got your traditional social AR, which is your Instagram, your TikToks, your Snapchats, where you'll have social AR elements within those apps. Then you've got standalone web AR. So this is where you'll probably activate a QR from a QR code. You might want to activate from a poster or an activation piece, point of sale potentially. And web AR is obviously don't need an app. It can just be activated through the URL and through your browser. So adoption and, you know, reaching mass consumers is a great way to do that. And that's hugely popular at the moment. And then finally, you've got app AR, which, you know, some brands might want to take an AR experience and kind of natively build it into an app. It could be an app which is built around AR as a standalone. So, you know, when we come on to talk about AR in a lot more detail, and we can obviously follow up with further information later on, you know, these are kind of your building blocks. And the next slide actually talks about the actual different pillars in AR. If we were to kind of, we've built over 100 AR apps over the years. But if you kind of wanted to look at, there's probably about 9 or 10 different pillars. And, you know, your traditional face tracking you'll see with your Instagrams and your TikToks and, you know, standard filters, through to maybe body tracking, image tracking, object recognition. You know, these are kind of your main pillars, and everything will kind of come down to one of these effectively when it comes to sort of creative, you know, how do we activate it through is it location? Is it a pop-up? Is it maybe there's a new one, the Gen AI, that's quite an interesting one at the moment. We're looking at obviously how we can weave in AI. But AR is very accessible, and I'm sure we've all had an experience in AR. If you guys are still interested, you know, it hopefully doesn't overwhelm you too much. We can share some more information after that as well.
Cool, thanks, Phil. We just wanted to touch on a really quick example of how we've used AR with a client of ours to really help solve a problem for them. And we always try and, when we're experimenting with extended reality and the different technologies that exist within it, we're always trying to solve a problem with it, or help a brand engage in a different way. And this one really was trying to help kind of demystify the process of making cocktails at home. For most people, that's quite a daunting prospect, and they need some help to do that. So AR was a perfect way of us helping to educate people and help them through that process. So through this app, this web AR app that we built, users could choose to visit one of 4 virtual bar environments, and using a sort of gamified walkthrough experience, they could build their own highball cocktail using ingredients of their choice. And so it really helped step them through actually how you configure and make these drinks in a way that feels really kind of natural and baked into the device. And it was a really successful project for them. So over 70,000 users, 2.5 minute average engagement time, but most importantly, a 5 times improvement in volume of sales. So it was a really a kind of impactful piece of work for them and helped them engage consumers in a very different way. And so just moving on from there and unpacking a few opportunities, but also demystifying a few myths around some of these technologies. We wanted to sort of really highlight the different elements of value that XR-led experiences can bring you as a brand, and it really is threefold. There's evidence to support that there's a growing consumer demand for these types of experiences. So 76% of consumers expect some level of personalization or an interactive visualization when they're going through a purchase. And as consumers increasingly purchase products more and more online, when you're considering high touch categories where actually really understanding how a product works and what it looks like on you as a person, whether it be fashion or footwear, or you're seeing a lot more of this in the world of kind of spectacles, having the ability to try a product on and view how it looks in AR is becoming increasingly more popular and more in demand from consumers. And there's also real further evidence to support the ROI that comes with a lot of these experiences. So DFS is a really great example of this. They launched a sort of a 3D AR tool for consumers to place furniture in situ and really sort of see how a piece of furniture might look in their space. And they saw a 22 kind of times ROI on that investment to really just support the initiative. And then finally, it does give you as a brand competitive advantage in your sector. So 71% of shoppers said that they would shop with a retailer more often if an AR functionality was offered. And so I think, yeah, in all categories, really, you're seeing brands trying to get a competitive edge and engage consumers in a slightly different way, and baking some of these technologies into your experiences is a really great way of doing that. And yeah, just sort of building on the point around effectiveness, we're seeing a lot more brands such as Nike and Gucci and IKEA really embedding this into their consumer journeys. And apps like the IKEA Place app that, much like the DFS one, allows you to visualize and place certain pieces of furniture into your home and actually see how they might look. Those apps have seen really incredible conversion rates, and so there's a commercial kind of case for increasing investment in these types of tools and engagement models. And so where do we apply XR tech to elevate an experience? What are the opportunities within that? We kind of feel like it's there are sort of 5 big ones why you should choose to embed a piece of XR tech into an experience. You see brands experiment with this. ASICS have done a lot in AR and sort of 3D spatial design in the way that they've launched a lot of their new products over the course of the last couple of years, building these sort of 3D worlds, but also bringing some of those objects out into the real world as well has been really, really successful for them. But creating more sort of gamified content and gamified experiences, actually looking at how you can kind of interact with things like out of home. Coca-Cola have experimented a lot in that space, but really adding a richer layer of interactivity to the way in which you show up as a brand is a really great opportunity for using some of this technology. And then also just driving brand awareness. I think we've seen a lot of kind of special builds in the world of out of home. We've seen a lot of kind of fake out of home work over the last couple of years, and it's a really great way of showing up as a brand in a way that feels surprising and unexpected. And so we expect to see a lot more of that experimentation in the coming years. It's also a really great way of creating a much deeper level of engagement. If some of those initial trials have gone really well and you want to build a richer, deeper experience around it, then it's really possible now to create much more kind of complex and deep AR worlds within either a web app or a native app that allow consumers to keep going back for more, unlocking new experiences within it, and you can even build things like loyalty and advocacy into it as well. And then the final one is educating and inspiring consumers. You've seen a lot of brands in the fashion space. Tommy Hilfiger have really done a lot in this world of doing things like AR mirrors, baking that into their retail design, and actually allowing consumers the ability to sort of try clothes on and just smoothing out the overall experience of trying on and purchasing things like clothes. This type of technology is really, really great for amplifying and enhancing the in-store experience, as well as kind of fully digital experiences as well. And then just finally, debunking a few costs and myths. I think there's a real perception that these types of experiences cost loads and loads, and it really is a how long is a piece of string kind of question. There's obviously so many different features and functions you can build into XR experiences, but it is also possible to develop and deploy experiences within much shorter timeframes and actually at much lower costs. You just need to be really clear about what you're trying to achieve with it. But it's definitely possible. You know, we've worked on projects that are much more agile, much more light touch, and it's really possible to do more for less than you might think. And then VR advancements, they're really allowing for more mixed reality experiences now as well. And again, the sort of entry price point is potentially lower than many people might think. And then, yeah, looking at things like more sort of 3D spatial experiences, we're looking at kind of unpacking those and the possibilities within them. And again, much more accessible than you might think. So we're sort of always open to having discussions about what are you trying to achieve as a brand and what experience are you trying to build for your consumers, and then we design around that. But yeah, the entry point is often much lower than you might initially think.
Super. That's great, Nick. Listen, you know, I think when you break it down, we've all got a mobile phone in our pockets. It's how do we unlock this technology that's already in consumers' hands? I think that's the biggest thing. It's about, you know, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's about unlocking technology that's already in most people's hands or pockets these days. So that was great, Nick. That was good, great. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you for the next 10 minutes around sort of insights and trends. You know, what is the latest technology at the moment? And you know, this is one that's been out. We've been launched in the US early in the year, in January, February. Got launched in Europe and UK probably about 6 weeks ago, and it's the Apple Vision Pro. The Apple Vision Pro is a game changer in terms of hardware technology in the VR space, and purely because of the technology in the actual headset. So 4K viewing, spatial computing. You know, it's a next generation TV format. So when we talk about phones, iPads, TV, the Apple Vision Pro invested $20 billion over the last few years to develop this headset. This is not going away, this sector, you know, so it's about taking insights and knowledge and how can we use that for consumer behavior, brand activations. It's a wonderful piece of kit. If you haven't tried it, get down to your Apple store. You'll be blown away by the experience. And the whole thing about the advancement is the mixed reality of it. You can wear it, you can have it with it. You can't drive with it. I'm not going to say you can have it permanently on, but you can walk around the house, you can do most of your daily tasks, and then you can, you know, check emails, make phone calls, maybe watch a bit of TV if you want. The idea of the headset is to be a lifestyle headset. And we'll talk a bit later on about the Meta as well. And then I'm going to talk to you about, you know, we always get asked the question at Catalyst and at Quantum is like, well, what's the latest trends? What's the latest software and hardware that's coming out? And there's a few. And listen, I'm going to talk to you about these top 5 trends at the moment. We'll start with fake out of home. So fake out of home, listen, it's a growing trend at the moment. You know, there's huge pros with it. You don't need a big production. You don't need to create big assets, health and safety. And I'm going to show you a kind of best-in-class example with Maybelline that was launched last year, which really got the trend going. But, you know, it's a massive... Fake out of home is a real good topic. Is it real? Was it fake? You know, it's very cost-effective. It generates huge social reach. And, you know, again, because it's so cost effective, you know, the ability to create these VFXs, these sort of fake out of home content, you know, it's getting hugely popular. And Nick's just going to play a quick video of Maybelline. And before you show that, I think this was really interesting, that kind of set the scene with fake out of home, because people are like, how did they do this? Where's the health and safety? You know, how did they get away with this? When actually it was all CGI assets. And Nick, do you want to quickly play this video of Maybelline? You might have seen it, you might have not, but this is just a great example of you know, it's only a short clip there, but you can see they was obviously using their brand. They had the sort of flicking thing on the front of the train. And, you know, it just created so much buzz. I think it was around 7 million impressions over 3 days. You know, when you talk about ROI and investment, that's huge, you know. So fake out of home is a real popular, you know, opportunity for brands and, you know, agencies consider, you know, when it comes to that kind of creative mix. Going on to the next one. AI motion capture. This is a really new advancement, and I'm talking probably in the last 2 or 3 months, it's really ramped up in terms of technology. It's new hardware, it's new software. Now, let's just step back in time when you talk about motion capture. When you had to do it previously, you had to wear bodysuits, sensors, setup time was quite ridiculous. You know, you had wires everywhere. Fast forward to now, we can do AI motion capture. Setups literally less than an hour. We need 4 cameras minimum. Footprint for about 3x3. You know, this is where brands can really take advantage of technology. And AI motion capture is up there. And, you know, we're looking at some campaigns, how we can sort of kind of weave this into sort of the creative assets and activations. And, you know, it's very clever. And in my opinion, this is where brands need to be looking. These are the kind of innovations out there that can really, you know, capture audiences. Nike have done some things recently with the dry fit range where you can kind of stand in front of it. It's a thermal capture. And all it is just these cameras with clever software that we can obviously, you know, amplify through it. And I think for me as well is these environments, you know, if you strip back the technology, it's about cameras, it's about movement. Now, what we then could create forward thinking is their environments, we could create avatars, we could replicate brand ambassadors, you know, we can have real fun and real play. I think it's a rich playground for innovation as well. If Nick plays his short video, you can see how it works in real time.
생각할 시간에 저지르는 게 my motto. I'm a baddie, 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 pretty little risky baddie. 뭐든 될 대로 되라지. Catch me if you can. Baddie, 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 앞서던 내 길을 막지 가뿐히 날아올 테니. Catch me if you can. I'm a baddie, 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 어디 그리 바삐 가니. 뭐든 될 대로 되라지. Catch me if you can. Baddie, 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 나는 없어 거기 이미 어차피 못 찾아.
You can see there, unfortunately, Nick, we're going to dance for you, but, you know, you can see there, you know, there was no wires, it was real time. You can then translate that movement into anything, you know, and this is the beauty of this technology, you know, so things are a rich playground. So hopefully we can have a few conversations about that. 3D digital out of home. Well, listen, the reason why this is getting more popular is advancement in the actual screen technology. You might have seen, you know, viral content, whether it's Snapchat or TikTok, in Japan and you know, and Tokyo, with lots of 3D animations coming out of screens. It's coming into Europe and the UK. You know, screen technology is coming here as well. And, you know, if you play the video here, you can see an example with Nike of, you know, how we can obviously create another platform for creativity. The beauty of 3D digital out of home, you don't need a phone to access it. You don't need a virtual reality. You know, these are on corner screens of high streets, you know, and it just gives, you know, the creative teams another ability to create those assets in different ways. And it just gives another opportunity to drive more storytelling with campaigns, really. Next one is holograms. So holograms have been around before, I think, but we're talking about new wave hologram technology. And this is about ability to create pre-recorded or even live content. So whether a brand has a real famous celebrity, you might want to create a energy campaign, like talk to consumers real time, we can do that. So if you play the video, this is a great example of holograms in practice.
Everybody watch out. Watch out now. I'm ready for a good time, and I came to groove. The whole band's here, and we came to move. Got a fresh haircut and 2 new shoes. We're here all night like we got nothing to lose. I'm coming out the jacket cause we're turning up the heat. I wanna see you clapping when you get up out your seat. It's time to make it happen when we hit these streets. I'm coming in hot and I can't be beat. Watch out now.
Brilliant. Yeah, we've used holograms before. So we did a campaign out in Sydney with Adidas on the World Cup last year, where we got all the players, we were able to pre-record some content and do some keepy-ups and some headers. And it's just a great way to do it. And these can be hired across weekends or even a week or a month or even buy one. You know, they're not expensive to hire a license. So, you know, good food for thought with the holograms. Second to last, dynamic creative. So this is about thinking outside the box. You know, we've all seen bus shelter campaigns, but because the technology in the screens is a lot more advanced, we can have more creative license with this. Whether it's live football scores, whether it's a local restaurant, turn left here, you know, we can be real geolocation targeted when it comes to dynamic creative within bus shelters. You might have seen this campaign we're going to show you. This was Pepsi a few years ago. This is best in class, where they weave the screen, innovation, AR, and brought it all together into a campaign which really drove the senses and got consumers talking.
To all the squares that ask around, we getting it. My skills pay me. I'm trying to get a million, baby, with an adopted flow that God gave me. Me now, tell whoever runners that they spot us temporary till I think they know that one. Tell Miss I'm on my wealth tip. So when we cash out soon, I'm just investing.
I'm telling you, this is how it works, man. There's a little camera right here.
So he told us how it works, a little camera there, you know, and again, it's just a real good example of, you know, using creative in a unique way. You know, we've got these sites, how can we weave in tech, you know, and obviously for us, it's quite exciting how we can come up with some ideas for this. So great. And then finally, in the tech trend section of this presentation, we're talking about sort of light projection, and it's actually quite a new innovation, because light technology has obviously been around, but how do we make it work in terms of activations? The Messi Experience in Miami have adopted this technology for light projection. And it's a real good way just to engage consumers at any age. I'm going to show you a great example. So if anyone works in sort of brand, sports, this would be an interesting one to consider when it comes to activations, maybe at ground, online, you know, we could activation sites as well. So Nick, do you want to play this video? That's brilliant. You know, imagine having the opportunity to play against ex-players at halftime at a football or rugby match. You know, this technology is going to grow. You know, so you know, keep an eye out for this. Next, so yeah, so they're the trends. You know, that's what's kind of hot at the moment, and we're kind of working together with Quantum on various briefs. Now we can bring that to life. But I guess it's always looking, you know, ahead. You know, what's for next year and beyond. And there's some interesting plays, and we'll talk about, you know, the kind of sector at the moment. You know, VR is expected to grow. Deloitte did a wonderful report not long ago which talks about the VR and the mixed reality and how that's going to be adopted by consumers with new generation coming through. And you know, this isn't going away. You know, VR, I would say, has been on a funny trajectory over the last couple of years, and we're at that peak now where it's coming back. Meta released new headset, we've got Apple Vision Pro come out. You know, so it's a real strong topic and a real, you know, user case to go, well, why are we considering VR, you know, and why are we doing this with brand activations? Yes, there is the pros and cons of having the headset versus mass adoption, so maybe it could be more AR, but, you know, VR is certainly a hot topic at the moment, and we'll talk about Meta in a moment as well. And I think when we talk about sort of future trends, my LinkedIn has been peppered for the last few months around immersive technology screens, whether it's been things at Disney, you know, these wraparounds. The example here we're going to show you is this is a stadium in Los Angeles or in Boston, where they kind of create these full immersive 180 screens to watch the games. You know, this wasn't here last year, 18 months ago. If you quickly play the video here, this is, people think this is at the stadium. You know, it's not. This is in a bar, Los Angeles. This is about taking the Premiership overseas and, you know, taking that football, soccer as they call it, isn't it? So this technology is the next wave of innovation. It's immersive viewing. If you guys don't follow me, get me on LinkedIn. I'm always pushing new content out there. There's some great videos I've just released from Disney, some of their rides with immersive viewing screens. It's next generation. But how do we use that for activations? You know, there's a play within this as well that we know, and how do we unlock it? So next, and then talking about screen technology, we are quite proud as a business at Catalyst to have a patent LED cave. We've been working behind the scenes for some time to develop the next generation kind of VR headsets, and we kind of stumbled across these caves, and we've kind of patented some technology where we can kind of step in to an environment and not have a 360 experience. That's quite mind-boggling. Nick, if you just play this quick reel, you'll see these screens. You might have seen it on LinkedIn. We went quite viral with it not long ago. This is some existing content we had with like Sprite and MX. We can use existing content and the ability to create anything really. You know, we've got these kind of walking screens. Takes about 4 months to make them, but, you know, it's always a conversation starter when we talk about these caves. But again, it's just a good example of new innovation, new technology coming through. You know, this could be out of date in 12 months, so we hope not, you know, but, you know, this is about what's fresh now, you know, what's going to happen in 12 months. So, yeah, quite excited about these caves. And then, yes, I think James quite nicely teed it up. You know, we had the Meta conference yesterday. You know, when you talk about Meta, they had some key insights around, there was a new AR headset. They've released a new AI platform, new virtual reality headset, which is $299, which they reckon is just as good as the Apple Vision Pro. But Apple quite scared watching that yesterday. You know, so for us as a business and as an industry, it's about, you know, what's coming next. And, you know, and like prime example of this Meta release is about new hardware, new innovation, new software. You know, how can we utilize that for brands? You know, brands want to be excited. Nick did a quite interesting insight into consumers want to be excited, want to have AR experiences. And if you do, they can convert. So we've got to, you know, acknowledge this XR world is not going anywhere. And it should be, it's not necessarily a standalone, it should be weaved into strategies and activations. And then finally, we've got, you know, well, I guess like what's next? I mean, it's hard to, you know, we're crystal ball at this stage. We're not Steve Jobs, but we've talked about mixed reality with the new headsets from Meta and Apple. And like I say, $20 billion has been invested from Apple into this Apple Vision Pro. They're not going to let it go away. You know, we've talked about immersive viewing there with new LED screens and technologies, and LA, like the Las Vegas Sphere is a good example of, you know, screen technology, and that's growing into Dubai. They've been talking about new screens for there. Then I think I saw something today that Dubai want to have their own Sphere. You know, typical. You know, so this LED screen technology is not going away. Quite an interesting one is this real-time deepfakes. You know, trying to mimic, you know, famous celebs. You know, real time. This is a growing trend that we've seen a little bit of a, you know, will that spike for next year? We'll see. You know, it's the same for AI. You know, VFX. You know, we're seeing AI being so powerful, creating content and productions that, you know, are fake, and you question if that's real or not. So, you know, the AI world, as we all know, is growing. It's it's quite exciting but scary at the same time. So, appreciate our time. We only had sort of half an hour, 40 minutes. I'm sure we could spend hours talking about latest innovations in XR, but hopefully that was a whistle-stop tour from us, giving you guys a top-level insight to the AR world, really.
Great stuff. Thanks, guys. It's really interesting. And do you know what I was very impressed with? Is that not once did either of you mention the metaverse?
What is the metaverse? How long have you got?
Oh, exactly. But no, they're really interesting. And we've had a question, which was, how can we be ready for 2025 trends from a social perspective? How can we be on top of the curve before competitors like Meta and TT, etc.?
It's an interesting. I think I'm being really honest. It's about the content, creativity. If you're in that social world, if you're thinking about what's coming through, what's the next trend, it's about the content, isn't it? We've got this vehicle and platform. Whether it's VFX, it's AR. Yes, it could plug into one of those sort of buckets. But I guess for me, it's about the content. What is the consumer behavior? What are people saying? What do people want? I would probably push that back to say.
I'd also say, don't be afraid to experiment. All the brands that we've showed in here today, all the examples, yes, ROI is really important, but they're all brands that have just tried something and just to see if it works and learn from that. So I'd say if you're in a category and you're looking to stay ahead of your peers, then the way of doing that is to test and learn and try things out. And it just really is about what metrics of success you set yourself. So it's maybe not about kind of increasing sales from day one, but you can see some of these experiments as opportunities to create a huge amount of hype and PR, which is obviously really valuable for you as a brand. So I think there's a temptation to look at it and go and really scrutinize it from is it going to help us drive the bottom line, which is should absolutely be a consideration long term, but short term, see it as an opportunity to generate a bit of hype and a bit of buzz around your brand. And if you're willing to experiment and try things out, there are huge opportunities for brands to do that.
Definitely. I think one of the questions that I had was sort of thinking around as well around the ROI stuff. Obviously, a lot of first-party data is quite kind of a sort of a topic that's on everyone's sort of kind of mind at the moment. So again, to your point, Nick, do you think that's the kind of how does this sort of technology help with kind of collection of the data there? Do you think?
100%. Yeah, it's another area that we're really interested in here at Quantum. We're always trying to build new models for measuring success and measuring ROI. And really, the more data you can collect and the more different touch points you have with consumers, the better, really. And we always try and think of, in the world of experiences, sometimes really hard to compare from an ROI perspective. On the face of it, experiences can seem quite expensive when you compare it to, paid social or even TV sometimes. But what you're not capturing is the engagement that an experience can create. And so we've started thinking about it in terms of engaged minutes, and actually the value that comes with that is it's really hard to find another channel or another way of communicating with consumers that compares with experiences. And when you bolt on things like AR or a VR experience, you're just increasing your chances of engagement with your consumers, and you're just going to kind of create those engaged minutes that are so valuable. So from a measurement perspective, we see huge opportunity and potential in experimenting with some of these technologies for sure.
I think for me as well, if you look at the whole world of digital marketing, it's not digital, it's omni-channel now. And I think that you rightly say there, it's not taking a risk or not being adverse to it, but it's just been openly to go, right, well, what's the touch points? How do we engage our audience? And not be too held up on, is it the XR or we can't afford it? Or is it a certain area of marketing? This whole omni-channel, I read a good article today on LinkedIn, the barriers of digital marketing, it's gone, it's marketing. 10, 15 years ago, yes, you were already digital and your social. It's all omnichannel these days, and XR has a real strong play to elevate experiences, and that's my opinion anyway.
So again, sort of touching on that, then I guess the sort of same point. I guess the question around particularly dynamic creative. So obviously you showed the ad, like the Pepsi example. Do you think they're more useful for publicity and hype rather than the value of the placements themselves? So they're kind of, or is it a case of, is it worth just, could you create just one film and then deploy as a campaign? What's your perspective on sort of that?
Yeah, the Pepsi one's interesting. There was no brand placement. If you notice the video, there was nothing on the video at all to say it was Pepsi. So it was actually just a social campaign for them. It depends on the objectives. Listen, XR has a real opportunity to drive through to sale. We've done stuff at Quantum with brands on trade, off trade, where we're driving sales. But it depends on the objective. If it's just about publicity, yes, of course, experiential has a real play in that. But it also has, as long as we get that consumer journey correct, we can drive sales and tick the right boxes. So it depends on what I would say, James, is the campaign brief. But I would say technology, the dynamic creative is a good example of, it can drive footfall to an area. It doesn't have to be. That was a good example of just engagement. But that bus shelter could be converted to turn left for a 50p off or a free bottle of Pepsi. Imagine the footfall that would have created. So I think it's just about using these sites and thinking outside the box, and that's what we guys do quite well, is just thinking about how could we take that and elevate it into maybe a tech world. But everyone has these. All the audiences these days want to be engaged, so that's what the data is telling us. So.
Cool. Well, I think we've kind of almost hit time. I've got one last question before we sort of sign off, which is obviously there's a lot of trends and where next. Which ones would excite you the most? Which one, like, really? Obviously, you're very excited about all of them, but if you were going to put your hat on one that you think everyone's got to try this, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I think the virtual reality, the Apple Vision Pro, Meta have just released. They've got tons of data that we don't know about. There's something there that is saying they are investing in these headsets. So, is that because consumer behavior is telling us to do it? It's about changing consumer behavior to wear them as a lifestyle product. So I'm really interested to see where this goes in the next couple of years. Will we see everyone walking down the streets with headsets? I don't know. It is. So I'm really interested to see how the VR world, it's been proven to work. We have real good case studies. We know it can be really immersive, but can it flip into everyday living? That will be my interesting, seeing how that plays out in the next few years.
Nick,
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I'd agree. I think, Meta released Orion yesterday, or at least a prototype a couple of weeks ago. Snap released their next generation of more kind of like AR spectacles. It seems like that's the direction of travel, and who knows what Apple have got up their sleeve. I think the Vision Pro is obviously something that gives you an extra level of fidelity and the ability to switch between a full VR experience and a mixed reality experience or an AR experience is super cool, and the possibilities that come with that are amazing. But how realistic is it to expect everybody to be kind of walking around with a headset of that size in their day to day? I think is maybe limited. So I wouldn't be surprised if Apple are bringing out their kind of more lightweight, more AR spectacle type product. I think that's probably where we're going to end up. And yeah, in a few years' time, then who knows what that means for devices like phones, and it could be that those become obsolete. So I think that probably is the space that's most interesting to kind of keep an eye on. But yeah, in the short term, there's so many opportunities that we've touched on today for brands to jump in and experiment. We've got a lot of exciting projects in the works on that, in those areas.
Sounds good. And I think I can foresee, who should have gone to Specsavers is going to be should have gone to Orion or something like that now, isn't it? That's where it's going to go as well. So anyway, no, great stuff, guys. We really appreciate that. It's really interesting. If you before you go, please do fill out the webinar poll. And yeah, we'll send it, obviously the on demand. We'll send it to you, the recording, in the next few days. Thanks a lot.